Hello, and welcome to Flutterbug Auto. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my very favorite racing games, mini car racing. Many of my earliest video game memories are with this game, which I got in a big box set for Christmas when I was 8 years old. One memory I have with this game is that, in my infinite 8-year-old wisdom, I decided that the best course of action, when my car had taken a lot of damage, was to finish it off myself. I'd crash into the wall over and over until it exploded, and then my health bar would be all the way filled again. Hooray! So of course I was very bad at the game for a while, but eventually I figured it out. I made it all the way to the end of the game, and it always stuck with me. Now of course, having warm fuzzy childhood memories about a game doesn't always mean it was a good game. You'll often look back and wonder why you spent so much time playing trash as a kid. But I was extremely pleasantly surprised to find that this game is exactly as good as I remembered it, if not even better, now that I'm an adult with a lot more game experience and I can appreciate all of the little details that make it so good. First of all, I am a big fan of the visuals. Everything is in that wonderful late 90s pre-rendered style. It's bright and sunny and colorful and lively, yet at the same time it's also kind of still and liminal. Nothing moves, nothing's animated except for the cars. It has such a particular vibe to it that I really enjoy. Especially nowadays. I think I've come to appreciate that vibe even more as time goes on. It's slightly realistic and slightly cartoony in terms of the details they include. I always love these like way too big cows, for example, and these whimsical like volcano environments. Like the game tends to be grounded in reality somewhat, and then you go to a track on an active volcano. I also, of course, love that all of the little advertisements and billboards around the track are advertising other games by the publisher eGames, such as the classic Speedy Egbert, and also this other game that I only recently started trying to play, called Spooky Castle. I never had that one as a kid, so it was interesting coming back to check it out now. Go check that out over on my main channel, hint hint. The tiny little car models are super charming as well. I love the designs of them. You go from a tiny little Mini and this cute chunky little pickup truck, and there's a Ferrari, and I love the funny little DeLorean reference with the Melorias. Each car has a definite distinct personality that I really appreciate. The track designs themselves are super memorable too. The unmoving isometric overhead viewing angle leads to some interesting design choices, featuring extensive use of crossroads and weird narrow roads and sharp angles. My favorite tracks are the ones with lots of intersections and winding paths that lead to fun interactions between cars, which of course I mean crashes. Oh shit! But the tracks do decently novel things too, like this one, where if you hit a booster you'll go flying through the air and skip a large portion of the track. Well, if you miss it, you'll end up way behind because you'll actually have to drive the whole course. Now of course, if cute little cars and pretty scenery was all the game had going on, it'd be a nice game still. But it wouldn't be what I consider one of my favorite racing games ever. No, the reason I consider it one of my very favorites is all the sauce it's got on top in the form of incredibly interesting and robust CPU players and the weapons. Oh yeah, this unassuming little game is actually a combat racing game, baby! The weapons and upgrades add a lot of interesting strategy to the game. Not only can you increase your firepower, but also your defense, your speed, the quality of your tires. The faster you go, the better tires you'll need. Your opponents upgrade over time as well, so you better keep up. The offensive options include bombs, oil slicks, and glue traps, the best of which, in my opinion, are the oil slicks. They really mess with other racers, causing them to slide and crash, and even just end up completely driving the wrong way, which I'll get into more later. It's really fun to set them up and watch the chaos. Whenever somebody slides on the oil, they leave thick tire trails behind exactly where they slid, so you can set up more oil slicks in the way and just keep the chain going. It's so much fun. The game is so much fun to replay because of these systems. Nothing ever quite happens the same way twice. Of course, my other favorite use for the oil slicks is to place them on Speed Booster, in which cars go absolutely flying. I also like the ramjets a lot. It's really fun being able to damage other cars just by nuzzling them a little bit. I love how goofy the concept of the glue trap is for a racing game. Just squirting a bunch of glue on the track, sure. The weapons that I recommend focusing on are You start with the machine gun because it has the benefit of having tons of ammo, so it's a bit more forgiving. Like, something like the missile is really good in terms of damage, but every lap you're going to have a much more limited supply, so you have to make sure every shot counts. But with the machine gun, even if you hit with like a few shots, you're doing damage. So you can afford to be a little bit less precise with your aiming. On the other hand, there's the homing missile, which is much better because, of course, it chases after things. You have to be careful not to be too far away though, because it honestly really sucks if your opponent is too far ahead. There's also, of course, the quantum torpedo, which is great because it's just the best weapon in the game. It bounces all over the place and lasts forever, and it tends to kill in a single hit. And I enjoy the sound it makes too. In general, there's a ton of variety with the weapons and upgrades, and even though I've given you my recommendations, I also recommend experimenting with them because there's a lot of different choices. There's EMP weapons I didn't even cover that stun instead of outright destroying cars. There's just a ton of variety. It's really fun. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about my favorite combat technique in this game, which is whenever you start in the back when a race is beginning, you can just nudge the person in front of you over the starting line and they'll be destroyed. There is nothing more entertaining than that little move in this game, in my opinion. Also, I want to mention my recommended control scheme, which is to put steering and throttle on WASD. I suggest putting the weapons on the arrow keys so that you kind of have like a two-handed approach. One hand on steering and one hand on the weapons. And then you can put your special, which is like your speed boosters, that kind of thing, onto the spacebar. And I found that to be the most comfortable layout since my recommended control scheme. There's also a fun give and take between deciding whether or not to buy an entire new car or just keep upgrading the one you've got. You get put in an immediate disadvantage when getting a new car because all of your upgrades get reset and you'll need to collect more money first to get more. So sometimes it's a better idea to wait it out with your souped up Mini. My general way of playing through the game is to start with the Mini because it's the cheapest. Upgrade it during the first league, and then just coast on. Like, don't spend any more money on it during the second league until you build up enough for the van, which is a big enough upgrade compared to everyone else that you can ride that through for most of the rest of the game. Also, as I mentioned, the computer players are really cool in this game. They'll do things like wiggle around in front of you trying to avoid getting hit by any weapons you might have. They'll deftly, or not so deftly, avoid hazards you place on the track, and even do some shenanigans like getting stuck on a backwards booster. Which, by the way, I don't think I've ever played any other racing game that has, like, trap boosters that send you the wrong way. It's such a funny thing. I love it a lot. And also sometimes the CPU players will get confused and start driving the wrong way on the track. It's really entertaining, and as I mentioned, no two races are the same. In some racing games, you'll end up with the same few racers getting the top spots every time, and that tends to happen here too because the CPU players do have different distinct skill levels. But the amount of chaos that occurs during the game leads to some wildly different outcomes. There were plenty of times where the usual frontrunner ended up in dead last. I also like that every racer has a silly little name, which adds another layer of personality to everything. I ended up developing fun little rivalries with characters like Clark Quigley and Speedy Buzz. We were rooting for this underdog character named Duck McClure, who kept his Mini throughout like half the game before finally disqualifying. The game is separated into leagues, each made up of 5 tracks that you race on 2 times each. You have to rank in the top 3 racers to move on to the next league. It's quite a lot. Plus, on top of that, the game saves its wildest wrinkle for the very end. The last league is on the moon. It comes completely out of nowhere and is 100% unexpected, but I love it a lot. It completely changes how you'll have to approach playing the game so that you avoid flying off the track all the time due to the moon gravity. I also enjoy how the tracks themselves are completely the same as the rest of the game. Like, who was building these normal ass roads on the moon? It's incredible. I love it so much. This, however, brings me to my first complaint about the game, which is that it just ends. When you beat the final league, the game says you win, and then it kicks you back to the title screen. And if you hadn't saved before that point, your whole game is just gone. It doesn't save any records or anything, so beating it falls a little bit flat. The sound design in the game is also a little bit lackluster. Most of the game is just silence and engine noise. The sound to me is really memorable and iconic, but I also grew up with it, so I'm probably just a bit biased on that one. It does give you the opportunity to add your own music, though. The isometric view can also make the controls a little bit difficult to get used to. Even having spent as much time as I have with it, I still sometimes end up turned around. Also really annoys me that you cannot play the moon tracks in time trial. You are forced to play them in Grand Prix and you have no choice. There's also multiplayer features, but they're a bit difficult to enjoy because you have to share the keyboard. And each player has a lot of buttons, so I'm not sure I expected to get like 4 people playing at once. Like maybe 2 people can comfortably play this game at once. But anything more than that is a big no. I also found out recently that there is another later version of the game that only released in Germany called Asphalt Duel, and it comes with a few changes. First of which is an intro video, and it has music. How wild is that? The rest of the game is still silent though. But they did bring out the music for the intro. The changes made are altogether very minor, such as there's improved graphics for explosions, a couple new renders, and the removal of the e-game stuff in the billboards, which is very sad. It's all just like made up cleaning supplies and stuff now. Rest in peace, Speedy Egbert. Also, you can now put a skull and crossbones on your car. Asphalt Duel also seemed a lot more difficult than mini car racing. So I definitely recommend starting with mini car racing, and then if you master that one and you still want more challenge on top of that, then you should try out Asphalt Duel. Unfortunately, this seems to be the only game that this developer ever made. The people who worked on this game do have other games in their portfolio, but this company showed up, made mini car racing, and then disappeared. It's a bit of a shame because it makes it really hard to like figure out anything about this game. It's a bit mysterious, but I definitely want to get people looking into it and playing it more because I think it deserves it. It's such a fun little game. I think there's so many things to appreciate. Just the way the CPUs work, all of the upgrade mechanics, the weapons. Everything about this game is so charming and so fun. So this is absolutely the game that I wanted to start out this channel with. Also, Asphalt Duel has some kind of online features that I think is possible to still get working. I'm going to look into that with some people soon, and if it works, I will make a follow-up video and talk about that. But yeah, thank you all for watching. This is the first video on this new channel dedicated to racing games. I hope you will look forward to more. I have quite a few videos planned, and I'm gonna keep making them into the future as well. I have a lot to say on racing games, not just this one, so I hope you all look forward, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for watching.